just announced a $260 billion investment in clean renewable energy. The latest, it's the largest investment in energy that nation has made since World War II. What prompted this massive investment in clean energy? It was the decision to completely ditch nuclear power over the next decade after seeing what happened in Japan with the Fukushima nuclear disaster. A disaster that is still ongoing. More than a year into the nuclear crisis of Fukushima, radiation levels have now reached their highest point yet within Reactor 2 at the crippled plant. At 10 times the immediate lethal dose, TEPCO is scrambling to find new robots and equipment that can sustain the radiation to locate and remove melting nuclear fuel. That's right, the current robots and equipment can't work within such a highly radioactive environment. That's how bad the situation is. To make problems worse, levels of water within the reactors needed to keep the cores from melting down are getting dangerously low. So what does all this mean? And just how closely should lawmakers who are addicted to nuclear power here in the United States be watching? Kevin Kamps joins me now. He's the radioactive waste watchdog at Beyond Nuclear. Kevin, welcome back.
Thank you.
First question, kind of going back in time, my son actually sent me a link to a USGS report that apparently just came out showing all the places around the United States where the cloud from Fukushima hit us. Can you describe what that is and how bad it is?
Well, USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey, has a monitoring network for radioactivity falling out from the atmosphere in rain into the drinking water supply. And what this new report shows is evidence that they gathered in the days and weeks after the Fukushima catastrophe began of fallout of radioactive iodine-131, radioactive cesium-134, cesium-137 here in the United States. They have monitoring systems all over the country. In fact, in my hometown, Kalamazoo, Michigan, I didn't know it, but on their map, there it was, and sure enough, radioactive cesium-137 fell out in detectable levels in Kalamazoo, Michigan. What USGS was quick to say, as most of the federal agencies do, is it was not at harmful levels to public health. But again,
there's no such thing as a not harmful level.
It flies in the face of the evidence that the National Academy of Science has for decades now that any exposure to radioactivity carries a health risk.
Right.
So you can't say it's safe. What they're really saying is, to them, in their cost-benefit analysis, it is acceptably risky.
So Fukushima has already nuked this country and presumably the rest of the planet. With the Reactor 2 now, I mean, the instantaneous lethality level, the you walk into it, you're dead level, it's now 10 times that in this reactor. How are they possibly even working around this? How did it get this bad, and where could it go?
Well, without radiation shielding, as you said, within a few minutes at most, you would get a fatal dose of radiation. And that's why no people are going in there. They're trying to send remote probes in there. They can't send robots in. They don't have the technology. And this is where the decommissioning bill for these 6 units at Fukushima Daiichi will easily be in the tens of billions of dollars, if not more than that, hundreds of billions of dollars perhaps, just to decommission, to take that place apart and deal with it. Right. And it reminds me of Chernobyl. In the initial weeks and months of Chernobyl, they tried robots, but it didn't work, and they had to get some stuff done. So what did they do? They threw countless thousands, tens of thousands of privates in the Army at that thing. They had to build that sarcophagus out of concrete and steel in a 6-month period of time, and countless thousands have perished from their radiation exposure.
And in Japan, they had, there was the famous 50, but there's been a lot more than 50 people who have been exposed to this.
Again,
radiation.
Countless thousands. Unfortunately, the Japanese mafia is involved in recruiting people to work there. People who are in desperate straits, that's who they're getting to work there in some cases.
With radiation levels this high, does that indicate that there might be a China syndrome kind of meltdown where we could see an explosion of steam that will blow more radioactive material into the air that might end up here in our rainwater?
I think anything's possible. Tokyo Electric has now admitted a year later that there's only 2 feet of water in Unit 2. They had said before that there was 33 feet of water in there. Everything's under control, it's being cooled. This latest news is there's 2 feet of water in there. The question is the melted down core even covered with water? And then the word is that Unit 1 probably is the worst of all. And then Unit 3 is probably worse than Unit 2 as well. I mean, Unit 2, if you look at it from the exterior, it looks largely intact. There's a single hole in one of the walls. The explosion in Unit 2 was internal to the containment structure. Unit 3 was the biggest explosion of all. You showed it in the intro.
Yeah.
That reactor building is a pile of rubble at this point. And Unit 1 also suffered the first and another dramatic explosion. So the situation is anybody's guess. Tokyo Electric, you know, the Japanese public's attitude is, are their lips moving while they're lying then towards Tokyo Electric and the federal government of Japan? Some good news is the Prime Minister of Japan, who was serving when the catastrophe began and was quickly ousted some months later, Khan, he's now devoting himself to anti-nuclear activism. He wants to abolish nuclear power in Japan. And in fact, out of the 54 atomic reactors in Japan, there's a single one operating right now. And it's going to shut down in May for maintenance. And the thing is, the local governments are saying, no, you cannot restart these plants. And the federal government is trying to restart them. So it's a dramatic struggle to keep these things shut down. And it raises the question, if they're all shut down and the lights are still on, then why do we even have them?
Right. Right. And, well, because somebody sold them the bill of goods, you know, the same bill of goods that we got sold back in the 60s. And so what should our viewers be keeping an eye on with regard to Fukushima? Any danger to the United States, danger to the Japanese people in Japan? You know, I mean, given that the winds come this way.
One of the biggest risks at Fukushima Daiichi is Unit 4, the storage pool for high-level radioactive waste.
Right.
The entire building is listing, including the pool. So what they have is steel jacks under the pool to try to keep the floor from falling out or the pool from tipping over. If that cooling water supply is lost, it'll be just a few hours at most before that waste is on fire. 135 tons outside of any radiological containment. Those would be direct releases into the environment. 100% of the radioactive cesium-137 could be released to the environment in those flames and in that smoke. But by way of comparison, we have named the plant in the United States, including exact replicas of Fukushima Daiichi, much more waste in our pools. Fermi 2, 500 tons.
I've got to wrap it. Kevin, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
We just put a picture of me when I was like 9 years old on To Tell the Truth.
I have a confession. I am a total ghetto princess. I love rap and hip-hop music and Christian music.
Thought he was kind of a dick yesterday.
I'm very proud of the role that Al Jazeera has played.